All right. Hey, guys. Welcome back to the Always Forward podcast. I've got somebody that I've been wanting to talk to for a very long time, Craig Ballantyne. And so those of you that know, I talked about it publicly that, Bedros was my mentor. And I was a coaching client of his, and we've remained friends, and you guys have worked together he actually was a client of yours, right?
The way that it started was I was first a client of his, and
Okay.
that was so 2009. He and I had never met, but I think I sent him a book in the mail first, and because I had read his emails and stuff like that for about a year, and then he sent me a book in the mail back, and we were kind of just emailing, and then he said, "Hey, I'm starting a mastermind group. Do you want to join?" And I said, "Sure, I'll join." So I paid for him first in 2009. Then after the first meeting, we were like, "Oh man," because it was more of a general business group. And then he said, "Man, we got to start one for online fitness pros." So he and I started that in 2000 and I think late 2009 was our first meeting. It might have been 2010. We ran that for about 7 years. And along the way, I hired him again for one-on-one coaching, probably like 2012 or 13, when he still had like the old Fit Body, tiny little headquarters. And then he hired me to work with his entire company at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've both hired one another because, it's a different relationship when you are actually hiring somebody, paying money to them, not just having a chat. Now, that said, we started another coaching program from like 2017 to 2020. And so over the course of those years and going to events, and he and I have joined other mastermind groups together, we have probably had dinner, let's say 112 times. And then, so in Man Up, his book, he dedicates a couple pages to what he learned at those dinners with me and how he then evolved and changed his habits, routines, personal discipline. Yeah. Page 54 and 55, not that I'm counting.
It's a great book. If you haven't read that book,
absolutely,
as well as yours as well. And kind of your book, you kind of talk about a lot about the entrepreneur thing where just you're doing your entrepreneur life and you are just struggling with crippled anxiety. And so many people deal with that, and they deal with it very privately. They're very secretive about that. And they're realizing that, and I've dealt with it myself, when you're building a business years ago, you have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fears, and a lot of fears of failure. And it can be crippling. And what it does is essentially it holds you back on your progress.
Absolutely. And so I have 3 books, and the second one called Unstoppable.
That's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. That one like chronicles how I went through 2. These were like truly, I mean, I guess literally not crippling, but they were, almost paralyzing to the point where I couldn't really do much. And I had one that felt like a 6-week heart attack. So every hour that I was awake, and I could only sleep from like 11 p.m. till about 3 a.m., every moment that I was awake during those 6 weeks, it felt like I was having a heart attack, tight chest, elevated heart rate, couldn't breathe, tingling from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. And it was during that was my second anxiety attack that sent me to the emergency room. That was 15 years ago. So 2006 New Year's Day was the first one. And I was in the best shape of my life at that time, Nick. I was 190 pounds at 5'9" with about 9% body fat. I wasn't the strongest guy in the world. It was like bench and deadlift around 400 pounds and, squat and 6-pack abs. But so it doesn't matter if you're in great shape, you can have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if, you're making money. I was making more money than I ever had in my entire life at that time, but I had the anxiety attacks. And there was a lot of reasons I had the anxiety attacks. And I wrote the book with basically 15 or 21 tools in the book. I call them tools that I will never have anxiety again. Doesn't matter if I had to chug 3 white cans of Monster and then somebody gave me bad news. I wouldn't have anxiety because I know how to get my body to deal with it through proper breathing and all sorts of stuff. And nutrition helps, and good sleep helps, and being active helps, but it's not the fix. There's a lot of other stuff that you kind of have to break down, and you have to get stuff out of your head, which I didn't do back then. And what goes to what you were saying, a lot of entrepreneurs kind of suffer in silence. That's That's the one-liner there. You know, they suffer in silence. They load up everything on their back. They do everything themselves. Those are the 5 deadly words. I will do it myself of the entrepreneur. And because they don't want to, you know, whether it's on social media, they don't want people to see that they're struggling, or they don't want their employees to see that they're struggling. You don't want your wife and your kids to worry about, you know, whether or not there's going to be money and food on the table and Christmas presents at Christmas time. I get it. We've all been there, especially people that have businesses where they have to put money into inventory and all that sort of stuff. And so when I wrote that book and got it out there, I heard from people who are worth $50 million. There was a guy who I really looked up to. He was quite a mentor to me. Virtually, I say, in a way, like I read all his books and got all his stuff. And then even personally, where I've had meetings with him, he sent me a private message and said, hey, yeah, I've had anxiety attacks. And I heard from all types of people. I got messages from, you know, this one guy was an Iraq war vet, 2 tours, a police officer down in Texas. And, you know, he sent me a private message on Facebook at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night from the emergency room, said, hey, I know now, I watch you stand on stage at Fitness Business Summit and say, you know, tell your story. And now I'm living it. And man, this is horrible. How, you know, what should I do? And I hear that from men, women, moms, dads, all types of people who've woken up with the proverbial refrigerator on their chest, they call it, you know, in the middle of the night. And, you know, so my whole thing is I don't want anybody to go through that. And if you are going through it, trust me, there's ways to get out of it. I laugh in the face of anxiety right now, and I attack anxiety. I don't let anxiety attack me, because that's the way you have to look at it, right? It's like football team or you know, an ice hockey team. If they're up a couple points or a couple touchdowns and they start playing defense, they lose the game. We've seen it every single time. And it's the same way in life. If you play defense against anxiety, it will always get you. So you have to attack it when it feels like attacking you, and that's how you take control of it. And you can get to the point where you don't have it.
So going back, let's go back, because I want to talk about I want to get into the morning routine thing, because I think that's a big help. I think it's a big help, in my opinion. I think we've been lied to by a lot of gurus out there. And hell, I've even probably said in my earlier days, I probably said it to myself too, because I was going through a certain type of transition. But you got started in the fitness world. You were an online trainer, or you were an in-person trainer, right? That's where you kind of started your entrepreneur career, was the fitness world, correct?
Yeah. So in 1994, 96, when I was still a college student, you know, I did my first personal training session for like $20. And then, you know, I did that for, you know, basically a decade. But I also started my first email newsletter in like 1999. I had no idea what I was doing. So I didn't sell anything online until 2001, January 28th, 2001. I sold a Word document to somebody who contacted me through the Men's Health Forum, because I started writing for Men's Health Magazine in 2000, and then I started doing some online stuff. And that's when I started to figure out.
But hold on, there's a lesson there, right? You were providing value and building an audience. I want to highlight this. You were providing value and and building an audience for 2 years before you sold a single product. Is that what I just heard?
Only because I didn't know how to sell a product. It wasn't because, you know, it wasn't only because I wanted to add value, but definitely building up that audience was key. And there were a couple of things I did there, Nick, because I have very introverted tendencies. Mm-hmm. And so obviously this is before YouTube and before even podcasts became popular, but I was interviewing other experts for my email newsletter. So that's how I networked. I could network. I call it introverted networking, and I could network from behind my computer and all that sort of thing. And that's what I did. And another big lesson here is like, I so bootstrapped that thing, because at one point, Nick, believe it or not, I had a 3,000 person email list that was kept on a Word document, and all the emails were sent out to the email list through Hotmail, and you could only BCC 50 people at a time. So I had 60 groups of 50 emails on a Word document, and I would go through them one by one in order to send out the email newsletter. It took me like 75 minutes to send out
one. How many times a month do you send out a newsletter?
I would send it out once a week. Wow. Yeah. So, you know, I've put together, you know, I've spent part of it was when I was still in college and grad school, because I got a master's degree in exercise physiology. So, I like either on a Saturday or a Sunday or a Monday, I would get the email newsletter out, and I'd sit there in the computer lab, and I would, send the email, and then I'd like go and, go to another computer and check, some other thing, and then come back and, I had done sending. But first of all, it also taught me how to be a better writer, because when I started writing, I was, there's a lot of science stuff and a lot of big words. And eventually I learned, if you want to write to people, you got to write at a very low grade level. I learned that when I started writing for Men's Health magazine. Keep it simple, keep short sentences. And so I learned to write better over time. But it also allowed me to test a bunch of ideas, and it led to my first kind of big breakthrough about what I sold online, this program called Turbulence Training, which, I sold for a long time, for about 15 years after from 2001 to 2015.
Wow.
And made a lot of YouTube videos. I have YouTube videos been watched 7-8 million times, that sort of stuff. Did a lot of body weight workouts, and we just the more stuff you put out, the more feedback you get. And I just kept on. I started out with like everything, go to a gym and use your barbell and use dumbbells, and then I get all these emails. Well, I don't go to a gym, I can't use barbells. And then I went to just dumbbells and body weight, and then I got all these emails. Well, I don't have dumbbells, huh? And it was like, by the time we were done, we were selling these pretty intense body weight workouts for like the average person, and those became our best sellers because they were the fewest limitations to people working out. They started off like, I started off with 45-minute workouts, and people were like, it's too long. And I got down to 30-minute workouts, and that's too long. By the end, we were selling, the video that has the most views on YouTube is a 4-minute body weight workout that has the 8 million views. It's just like, it's a good lesson, right? It's not, you obviously don't want to go that route in some cases, because certain things take work, but I can crush you in 4 minutes. And everybody here has probably done a super short workout, but it is very important to listen to your customer. And obviously, like, I'm not going to get a CrossFit Games champion in 4-minute workouts, but you're going to get some people fit and that sort of stuff. And I transfer that into writing my books, where I wrote most of my books 15 minutes at a time, because I was thinking about this morning. The greatest class that I ever took in my entire scholastic career was grade 10 keyboarding, because what do I do the most? The most activity that I ever do is typing. I've written books, I write articles, I write emails to people. And so I've spent so many hours of my life typing. And if I didn't take that keyboarding class and I was still typing, one finger at a time, it would take me forever. So this is the greatest bang for my buck of education. And so over time, I, got better at that and wrote all this stuff and got all this content out there. And now we do the podcasts and the videos and all that sort of stuff. And I sucked at that really, really bad when I started out. But, if you're serious about something, you model somebody. Like I started watching preachers and comedians when I wanted to get better at video, because you could see how like they could hold an audience. And obviously there's a dichotomy between the two, foul mouth comedians and non-foul mouth preachers. But you know what, if you want to look at people who can hold an audience and do a great video and do great speeches, it's those people. So I went and learned from them and figured out what was wrong with my presentations. I watched them, painful to watch, but I watched them. And, it's just that circle of feedback that gets you better at things.
So was that that they say like your first podcast is going to suck, your 700th is not. Your first video is going to suck, your 700th is not. So the quicker you can get to 700, the better off you're going to be.
Well, yeah, I mean, technically that's like the 10,000 hours rule, but right. We all know people who have played 10,000 rounds of golf, give or take, and that are still bad golfers, right?
Yeah.
And so there's two ways to look at that. One is, yes, if you simply just went and did something, you'd get better at it. Now, if you throw an expert in there who's going to give you expert advice and who's going to give you expert feedback on your performance, and you're going to be open-minded, then clearly you're going to accelerate a lot faster.
Yeah,
I actually started
right
a podcast. Yeah, exactly. And that goes for anything in life. Like if you're trying to improve in something and you don't have a teacher, you're lying to yourself. Like think about it. Think about anything. Like everybody listening, you got kids. You want them to learn how to swim. What do you do? Throw them in a pool?
No, you
don't just throw them in a pool. You hire an instructor.
Craig,
did you
see that? We actually did that with our kid at 9 months.
No way.
Yeah, we did. We hired a was it ISR? I think is what it's called. And she started working. She started working with him at 9 months old. He's 2 years old. This kid swims in the pool like he's a fish at 2. No floaties. Never been in floaties. Never been anything. It's amazing. And that's what there it is.
Have you? I stumbled across this. Have you stumbled across Baby Joshua on social media?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so Baby Joshua, I mean, the kid can't be older than your child, and he's been taught to do karate kicks, and the karate kicks are vicious, and his dad lets him kick him in the legs and all sorts. And you're like,
Wild.
there's a child who can barely stand in diapers kicking violently. And so it just goes to show you what you can do. But our daughter's 6 months old, and we take her to these like kind of goofy swim classes, and we go in the pool with her all the time, and she loves the water. So 9 months, great. I guess we'll get the official swim teacher because she just loves it.
I highly suggest it because it really is on a especially where you're living now, and there's so much water. It's just one of those things that you can mitigate, right? And the biggest thing is just to get them to roll over and breathe and save themselves to give time. But he just went to the next level and kept doing the next level. Next to he's doing crossover, he's swimming, he's doing slides. It's wild, but it does. So to your point, let me fix this.
That's one of the things with sorry to interrupt, but that's one of the things with my kid is like, well, I can swim, but I don't know how to swim properly because it's been 30 years since 40 years since I took a lesson, right? And I'm going to learn how to swim with her. I'm going to take a BJJ with her when she starts doing that. I'm going to do some before, but also like when she does it, I'm going to take up all this stuff with her and just learn with her, whether it's playing an instrument or stuff like that. Just, so it's more time with her.
Yeah.
But also, just whatever she wants to get into. So that's cool. And when you're ready, we'll go back to getting good at podcasts because I got a story on that.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm real quick. I lost your video, Craig. So I'm going to try to.
You did?
Yeah. I'm going to try to switch. There he is.
It's like I have to keep the computer from sleeping.
Oh, okay. I've never had that issue. It just froze up.
No, neither have I.
You're good. So,
okay.
Hit the podcast thing real quick.
Yeah. Okay. So I started my first podcast in the fitness industry in 2007. Like people didn't know what podcasts were. And essentially what I did was I took one of my emails and I would read it. And so every week I was doing like on a Sunday, 7 tips, like here, do this on Monday, do this on Tuesday.
Oh, so it was just you. You were just talking by yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And I was just talking. And again, because of my introverted tendencies, I was very robotic in how I spoke, both for the audios, but also when I was on stage. So at the time, I'm not a great communicator. And if you go back and you watch my first YouTube video, if you go to YouTube and you type in Craig Ballantyne 300 workout, that video probably has 1 million views. And it was created at the request of Men's Health magazine when the 300 workout came out in Men's Health magazine around the time the 300 movie came out.
I remember that.
And because of the key. Yeah. And so because of the keywords that got a lot of views on YouTube, and I talk like a robot in it, hi, I'm Craig Ballantyne. Here we go do 25 pull-ups to start the 300 workout. And, it's really bad. And so I did for 2 years that fitness podcast. And then, it was just on this laundry list of things to do. And it's just like, I'm just going to stop this. And so I quit it. And then a couple years later, I think it was 3 years later, I started my Early to Rise podcast. And then I did that for a couple years. And then no, wait a minute. No, I wrote my book, Perfect Day Formula, in 2015. And one of my mentors said that every time he goes on a guy's teleseminar, so this is like, showing how old he is. Every time he did a teleseminar for somebody, he sold 100 books. And I thought, well, if I just do 100 podcasts and I sell 100 books in every podcast, 10,000 books. And that's more books than almost any other author sells. So it's like 1% of all authors. So I just started doing podcasts. And at first I was bad. And so since then, including the podcast that Bedros and I have done as part of the Empire podcast, and including the podcast that I've started where I have a couple of hundred of my own episodes, I'm probably looking at about 900 to 1,000 hours of podcast time. And I know that I have been interviewed over 400 times on podcasts.
Yeah.
So I've learned to tell the stories better. And I'm a little bit rusty because I haven't done a lot of them recently, But usually when I'm in the flow of doing a couple podcasts per week, I will never say the word or ah. And I can go up on stage for an hour and not say the word or ah. And what I do is I learned how to elongate my words if I'm looking for the next thing. So instead of saying, I will say, I'm looking for the next word to say in the sentence. And then I've also learned to tell my stories better. So if you go up there and onto a podcast and you tell your story and then you listen to it, that's the hard part, right? Is reviewing your performance.
Yeah.
It's one thing to go and watch yourself do a back squat and sit there with your trainer and, they look at it, or to be an NFL player and watch your game tape, or to even, I guess it'd be difficult to watch yourself in like a fight or something like that if you're a martial artist, but watching yourself speak or listening to yourself speak, it's one of the things that most people, almost the majority of people, do not like listening to their own voice. But I had to do that because I would watch myself and go, wow, did I start with low energy? And then I would watch somebody like Brendan Burchard, and obviously that guy's energy is through the roof. And so I learned how to increase my energy. Because Nick, if you and I were in person talking, I would talk like this. I would say, hey, Nick, what's up? Yeah, great. Like that's how I talk. One word answers, downward inflection. That's how I naturally talk, because I don't like to talk. I actually find it physically exhausting to talk for a long time as a person with introverted tendencies, not an introvert, but somebody with introverted tendencies. And so I just learned to go into get psyched up for a podcast and, bring energy. And sometimes I'm almost like too much. Like when I record my audiobooks, they're like, you come off a little hot at the start, so can just tone it down a bit. And so I do that, but it's helpful. And I mimic a lot of people, and I spent a lot of time with Bedros, and where he mimicked my discipline, stuff like that. I would mimic how he would enter a room, and I watched, and he goes and he shakes everybody's hand, says their name and talks to them, and he's California cool. And I'm not naturally like that. And so I had to, basically I watched it for like a year, and I was like, I just, memorizing it before I started doing it myself. And when I was doing it myself, it felt so awkward, but eventually it became normal. And then I remember one year I went to one of his events, and I told everybody I was going to hug 100 people, and which is not my normal way of greeting people, or wasn't back then.
Yeah.
And I remember hugging a few people who had known me for a couple of years, and they were like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" But it was a personal growth thing. And so all that to say, no matter how you are at storytelling, no matter how you are at telling jokes, no matter how you are at bringing energy into conversation, it's all a learnable skill. Everything is a learnable skill.
Yeah.
And if you're not a funny person, but you want to be funny, you go to improv and you do all this stuff, and it's painful at first. And as the old saying goes, the people who get good at things are the people who are willing to suck at things first. And it's difficult, when you get to, like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 47, and sucking at things isn't really on my to-do list, but there's so many things I need to suck at in order for me to become a better version of myself. So, I'm going to get good at learning how to suck at things.
Yeah. And
that way I'll be able to get good at things.
We talk a lot about that on the podcast is, you have to struggle. Especially if men are not struggling, you're not really growing, because we live in a soft world. You got a house, you got a roof over your head, you sleep in a nice bed, you got food and water, and you're, at the end of the day, your life is, for the majority of people in the world, it's okay. So for us to really grow, we have to seek out. We're not hunting and gathering anymore. We're not building a shelter and fighting wolves. So we have to seek out struggle. We have to seek out be on the fringe where growth happens. We have to find it.
Yeah. And so, the queen just died, right? But if you take a look at our standard of living versus her standard of living when she was first, became the queen in like the 1940s.
Yeah.
Like our standard of living of almost everybody that's alive is better. Well, not everybody's alive, but the majority of people in America, the majority of people listening to this, almost everybody listening to this, like your standard of living is better than the king and queen 50 years ago. So you're right. It is. And where I am here, I could go, like, I personally don't, wouldn't choose to leave the house unless I had to, but I could go literally weeks without leaving my house because of everybody can come and deliver stuff. And my gym is, this clubhouse across the street from me in this gated community. I can never leave my compound. That's how easy life can be. But I know that is bad news for me.
Yeah, it's just going to make you super soft,
news.
and complacent. If you get complacent there, complacency is gonna bleed into other areas of your life. So, Craig, real quick, was that what you were selling, those short little workouts? Was that really your first 7-figure business?
The fitness business, the selling the workouts became a 7-figure business, I believe around 2008 or 9. So like when everybody was kind of going through the first recession thing that we've had in the last 20 years. And so it was the online fitness business.
That's amazing.
Selling ebooks.
You were early.
It was a 7-figure business in ebooks before it even became videos.
Wow.
Once it became videos, then it became multiple 7 figures.
How did you how did you bridge the gap between that and mentorship and coaching and that world?
So in 2007, when not a lot of people had online businesses, the people who were personal trainers in Bedros's world, so Bedros was the coach to personal trainers at that time. Here, I'm going to help you grow your gym. I'm going to help you get more clients in the real world. And there was a percentage of those people who were like me. Like I'm as a person with introverted tendencies, going to the gym and spending 8 hours a day with somebody is not a pleasant thing. Yeah. And so I started my online business really before I became a full-time trainer. And when I was a full-time trainer, every single day was about how could I not be a full-time trainer? How can I build this online business? And so I went to the extremes. I was at 25 years old. I was up at 4:30 in the morning working my online business for 20 minutes before I took the bus from the west end of Toronto into downtown Toronto, because the subway didn't run at that time of day, to train my first CEO client at 6 until 11 a.m. I trained a couple of CEOs, then their wives. Then I'd have a break and I'd lift and I'd go to Subway and get a meatball sub and a chocolate chip cookie and a chocolate milk. And then from 3 until 7, I'd fall asleep because I was like a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
But you're 25 years old. You need whatever you want. And then from 3 until 7, I would train the CEO's kids. And then, maybe some other CEOs come back in for the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock workout. And then I go home. Right.
Yeah.
And I tried at first to build my online business at 7 o'clock at night. But at 7 o'clock at night, after that type of day, it felt like someone was sticking shards of glass into my eye. So that's when I realized I had to do the 4:30 in the morning thing. So anyways, I did that for a few years, Nick. And a lot of people would always be, emailing me, "Hey, Craig, love your workouts. Just bought them, use them with my clients. How do you sell programs on the internet?" So once you get enough people asking you for something, this is the same way that I came up with turbulence training. All my friends were asking me for a short workout because now instead of having 14 hours a week to go to the gym, they were married, had their first kid, had their first job. They had 3 hours a week. So I wrote that program for them. And then I got all these trainers saying, well, how do I start an online business? So I started teaching that. And I had my first online business seminar in 2007 at the PGA Resort in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I had 53 people there. So, there's some big names in the fitness industry at the time. Paid, back then I sold that event for $2,500 or $3,000. And then I sold my first mastermind. I was horrible on stage back then, but I still got enough people to join a mastermind group. So I started coaching people that way in 2007. So now my business looks like about half the money is coming in from selling fitness ebooks, and half the money is coming in from teaching other fitness experts how to sell fitness ebooks and nutrition books and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And no one was really doing coaching. Like everybody does coaching now, but no one was really doing coaching back then. Because some of my friends, like my friend Joel Marion, who was a high school teacher, he was 26 years old. And when he came to me for coaching in 2009, he was making 42 grand. He was working until 3 o'clock in the morning trying to build his online business. And he's like your son who's amazing at swimming at 2. Joel just took to online marketing, quit his job as a teacher, and was selling $75 ebooks and like thousands of them in product launches. And he was making $1 million in under a year selling ebooks. But you can't, people sell ebooks for 99 cents now. So it's a totally different world, which is why people do coaching. But I taught people that from 2007 till about 2010. Then I joined forces with Bedros. And the other thing that I did along my career is I was then running turbulence training, the fitness business, the coaching business, and then I bought another business called Early to Rise, which is a productivity, personal development, financial newsletter. And so I'm running all three of those things. And this one guy, a guy named Ed O'Keefe, he has a supplement company, and he's really he's a good friend of mine and really into BJJ, and he lives in Chicago. And he said, "Man, you're the world's most productive man." And so then all these people started asking me, how can I be more productive? Which then led to writing the Perfect Day Formula and creating productivity courses like our Millionaire Morning course. And then I wrote the Perfect Week Formula and the Unstoppable. So it was just, all these people, if people are asking you the same question over and over again, like, how did you, or how can I, then you probably got a business there.
And that's kind of what I want. And you just kind of hit it. You nailed it, because you summed it all up right. Because that was my whole point is we got into training, my business partner and I got into training because I had an overwhelming amount of young men asking us how to prep to go in the military. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I'm like, so I called Josh, who's an old teammate in special operations. And I said, "Hey man, we gotta do something here. Do you want to partner with me and let's do something?" And that was in 2017, I believe. And then we wrote we wrote a no kidding book, like an actual hardback book, and as a training manual, and then put it online and everything, and made an ebook, and that's how it started. And then other people started asking, like grown men started asking, "Hey, I'm not joining the military, but I want to get in shape, and I like the military fit type of thing." And then that's next thing you know, so fast forward to 2022, we've for the last 3 years we've had our coaching business called the Agoge, and we help men there. But that kind of leads me into well, I'll tell you, I don't know if you're...
First of all, I'll say it's funny how long how often I had to get asked something before I was like, maybe this is like a business idea. It's such a dummy.
Yeah. Now it doesn't take that long. If I get multiple hits, I'm like, yeah, we need to create a course or create something. You know what I mean? But it was, Craig, it was like hundreds, and it took hundreds and hundreds of DMs before I was like, I think I should write a manual for training for the military, but,
well, what I did, just as a funny side note, is I had all my friends asking me for a workout. And I remember going home and basically every single day I would write a new program for one of my friends who was in the exact same situation as the guy it took me like a couple of months before I was
what am I doing?
What are you doing? Just write one program.
It's all the same. They can benefit from it. But anyways.
Yeah. So all to say, like, if this stupid farm boy can figure out how to make a business, you can too.
So we started coaching people and started kind of bringing them into this 90-day plan. And that's how it started, was a 90-day plan. And, it was like, I think I launched it by myself before I even got Josh. It was like $30 a month for 90 days. So $90 for 90 days, and have them track macros and this and that. And it was very rudimentary, very old school, Excel sheets, Google Sheets, all that kind of stuff.
And that's a great lesson.
Yeah.
Though. Like, just start with what you got.
Just start, right? Just start. And so what I started to realize was, and this is kind of where you kind of come into play, you could give them the what. The what wasn't the problem. The training and nutrition wasn't really, nutrition obviously is always a problem, but at the end of the day, you still gave them that. The what was not the problem. It was the how. The how was the problem. How do I, like you said, I'm married, I got 2 kids, I'm an industry professional in my industry now. These guys that go out there, and I mean, this is essentially my entire, almost my entire clientele now, is men put themselves on the back burner. My wife needs me. My job needs me. My kids need me. So I can't go to the gym because I got to go relieve her because she's been there, or I've got to go take care, drive the kids to somewhere. And, 5 pounds turns into, this turns into this, you know what I mean? And that's, next thing you know, they're 300 pounds. And so the what is not the problem. You can go buy a program online. You can buy a PDF. You can buy something on an app, whatever. But you still have the same problem. That you had before, is how do I do it? Well, enter Craig is we started realizing that they needed discipline in their life. They needed a routine. And as we were working more into this, and we started to do it on our own, we came up with, we found the perfect week formula. And that is the system that we now use. All of our coaches have that. We've purchased that from your assistant. And all of our coaches have that, and we push that to all of our clients. And that's how we build their routine. So, it's not so much just to go to a workout. We're like, hey, listen, are you dating your wife? When's the last time you dated your wife? And Craig, I mean, you probably heard it all before, like, I don't know, 6 years before we had kids. I don't know. I don't even know when the last time we went on a date is. And they wonder why, like, they start having issues with, their marital issues, and things start to kind of fall apart, and then they get complacent in their weight. Next thing you know, they're complacent in their relationship, they're complacent in their bank account, and it trickles down. But man, when we fix the how, it changes everything, because there's so much fat in their life and their day and in their week that is not serving them. And when I identified, I'm like, okay, so what time do you wake up? What time do you go to bed? Tell me every 15-minute increment in between. And they almost get embarrassed. They're like, as they're writing it down, they're like, oh shit, there's a lot of bullshit in here that I didn't realize. And so that's anyway. So we use, there's the big secret. We use Craig Ballantyne's perfect week formula in our coaching business.
Yeah, it's all about prioritizing what matters. Yeah. And because there's a lot of people out there that everybody knows, like, some person in their life, and you're like, how the heck are they pulling this off? They got 3 kids, they got 5 kids, they're involved in this, that, and the other thing. And they don't seem that overwhelmed or everything. And it's because they just focus on what matters, and they've really eliminated a lot of the things.
That's me. I've got 4 businesses. I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife. I've got a bunch of employees. We've got crazy schedules. We do jiu-jitsu. It's nuts, man. It's nuts. I'm not overwhelmed. It's awesome.
Yeah, because it's amazing what you can do. Yeah. It really, truly is.
Yeah, it's your priorities. It's all about your priorities. So around this method, right? This is where I want to get to. When I was early on in my career, or in my entrepreneur post-military, it was like, you wake up and you don't check your social media. You go journal, and then you meditate, or you get up early and you go work out. You do all these different things, and you make your bed. The first thing you do, you make your bed, so that bed is made and you've accomplished a win, and then everything else is gravy after that. Craig, what is your thoughts on that morning routine to be successful?
Well, I've never made my bed in my life. And so I do pay somebody else to make it for us, but I don't make it myself. And so a lot of those things are neither necessary nor sufficient for success. So we actually even have to back up a little bit. And first of all, we have to define success. Mm-hmm. Very much like, obviously when you're a special operations operator, it's like, well, what's the definition of success of this mission? Yeah. And most people go through life saying, I want to be successful, but okay, well, what is your specific version of success? And so we talk about that, not as much in the perfect week formula, but a lot more in Unstoppable and the perfect day formula, about knowing exactly what you want to achieve. Because when you know exactly what you want to achieve in 3 to 5 years, it makes all those decisions around what to do every single day so much easier, because a lot of the things that you're tempted to do every single day are just a detour. And you have the straight line to success, and you can just say, no, that's a detour. I'm going to stay on the straight line of success, and you're going to get exactly what you want. I've gotten the exact business that I wanted. I got married on the exact schedule that I wanted to, all because I wrote these down in my visions, and I stayed on the straight line to success and eliminated the fluff. And so when it comes to your morning routine, listen, I'm not saying that meditation is a waste of time. I'm just saying that if it's important to you, you will make time for it. We all make time for what's important. But for those difficult things that we are tempted to avoid, the longer we take to get to them in a day, the more difficult it is to actually get to them. And everybody listening has had one of those days where it's like, listen, I really got to get this done tomorrow. and they wake up the next day and something gets them off track, and they do some social media, or they clean the garage or whatever. I mean, I've done before I was really on this path, I did some of the silliest things. Like, I remember one day I was supposed to be writing a chapter of a book, and I started cleaning my house back when I was a bachelor. And Nick, I don't even know how to turn a broom on, but I was trying to clean the house. And so, see, this is like, I couldn't have told that joke on my first podcast, but I can tell it now. And so I would like, and then I was like, my goodness, this is wrong that I'm doing this, and I need to get back to work. But most people can't do it with the discipline. So you have to set up the environment for success. And so one of the things we teach people, and this is not related to physical training, but if you really have to do some important work and you work predominantly at a workstation, the same workstation all the time, is just go to your workstation right now and sit down there, put your arms out to your side and do a full circle. Go like this. Everything within arm's reach is, to use kind of a crude phrase here, it's like an IED. It's an explosive device that's going to blow up your time. It's not going to blow up you, but it's going to blow up your time.
Yeah.
So I've got, a copy of this book sitting here, and it's within arm's reach. And if I was working on something that was very difficult and I wanted to procrastinate, I could reach and grab that book, and that thing's going to blow up my time. And I've got this phone here. It's turned off, but I got it beside me, and it's within arm's reach. And all of those things are roadside distractions. Now, I'm on a podcast, so I'm obviously not going to pick up a book. Yeah. But after, when tomorrow morning is when I go back to my deep work stuff, those things are not going to be here. Those things are not going to be here because I need to have everything. I need to build a fence around myself. That's the way that I look at it. And removing distractions is one part of the fence. And planning and preparing exactly what you're going to do the next day is one part of the fence. And then even doing a little bit of seed work, we call process planning, the day before. Like, if you got to do a PowerPoint presentation or you got to write a chapter for a book, don't just think, I'm going to open up a blank PowerPoint and I'm just going to whip off a presentation. No, you're going to get writer's block. So write down a couple of bullet points the night before, and the next day it's so much easier for you to get into it and do that hard work. And that's another
intentional, and
is
an intentional decision prior to that you're going into it. You know exactly what you're getting into.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure you've probably told somebody before, like, hey, if you struggle to work out first thing in the morning, that's the only time you can do it, then set your exercise clothes out right beside your bed. Yeah. Because if they're not there and you got to go hunt around for them, and you got to hunt around for what to do, and you don't know what to do in the workout, well, that's going to be inertia. Yeah. And so when you have inertia, it makes a task like rolling a giant stone up a hill. But what you want to do is you want to set things up. You remove distractions, you have the exact plan, and that's like rolling a snowball down a hill. And so just a couple of small changes go from 500-pound rock up a hill, which is impossible, to 200-pound snowball down a hill, which actually gets easier over time, and it builds up, and you have momentum and motivation. So it's small hinges swing big doors.
It's funny you say that, the way you worded that with the clothes by the door or whatnot. So when I did one of my challenges that I did was 60 sessions of jiu-jitsu in 30 days. Wow. Yeah, it was horrible. I don't recommend it. But I look like I had been beaten, and like 1 week in, I looked like I was on chemo. It was just I immediately got sunken in, 2 black eyes. I was like, they're like, oh, you look rough, man. I'm like, I'll make it. But about the halfway mark, man, I had some really internal doubt, and my body hurt. I was tired. I'm going at 5 a.m. I'm going at 7:30 at night, sleeping in between, and still, having a newborn, still running my businesses. When I started to have that self-doubt, this is when that routine discipline kicked in, because I just did that. I had my bag packed by the couch out in the living room. All I had to do was wake up, and I removed any excuses or any things that was going to slow me down. All I had to do was roll out of bed, grab my bag, and walk out the door. There was no decisions to be made. There was nothing to prep. And honestly, there was days that I don't even know if I physically can do this. But because of that prep and the fact that all I had to do was just move, walk out the door, open the door, get in my truck, the inertia was already happening. So it didn't really matter. And that's how I made it through the 30 days.
Yeah. So when I went through a tough point when I left the fitness industry and started the coaching business, we were making great money in the fitness business, and I turned it off almost overnight.
Okay.
Right. So at our peak, it was $5.5 million a year. So turn that off and go to only the productivity and entrepreneurship coaching and no email lists. And it was difficult.
Yeah.
And so around that time, I found Tim Grover's book, Relentless. And there are a couple words. There's a lot in that just got me fired up. I would read 3 pages. I'd go and I'd do everything to get a new client that day. And there's not a lot of motivational books because I generally don't need motivation. But that thing just put me into a higher gear. And one of the things that Tim says in that book is that, he talks about all the people they train. He says they just don't think, and so you set it up so there was no option for you to think.
Right.
And Tim's advice helped me. So I went on this vacation a couple of years ago to 2018. I went to South Africa with my friend Joel, who I mentioned before. And we went to Zimbabwe. Well, we went to the safari in South Africa, and then we went up to Zimbabwe for a couple of days. And there's this place called Victoria Falls, which is like one of the 7 wonders of the natural world, I believe. And over Victoria Falls, over this gorge, they have this thing that looks like a bungee, but it's a swing. So you jump off this cliff. It's 270-foot free fall. And then instead of it buoying you back up, it catches you and just swings you out over the gorge. And so the first day that we go, I think about it and I say, no, I'm not going to do it. Get this. You know what t-shirt I was wearing that day? Man Up. I was wearing a Man Up t-shirt.
You said no thanks.
Yeah. So fortunately, the next day, the kids, Joel's kids and all the other kids that were there, they just loved, there was a zip line beside it, and they were obsessed with the zip line. So they were like, we got to go back and do the zip line. So I go back and I just think of Tim Grover and I just go, just don't think. And so I go, Joel, I'm going to do it. And he goes, really? I go, yeah. Okay. So I'm not wearing the Man Up t-shirt anymore. I'm just wearing a white t-shirt. And I just go and I get harnessed up. And the only thought that I had was, listen, all these other people have done it and they didn't die. So I'm either going to be a news story or I'm not going to die. Yeah. And so I just don't think. And he harnessed me. And some of the other guys would walk up and, stand there for a few minutes. I just walked up and jumped off and didn't think. And so I regained my ability to wear a Man Up shirt after that. Otherwise I would have had to retire it. But because I'm not a huge fan of heights. So anyways, I did that and I just did it because I didn't think. And so there is a lot of situations where we'll be put in challenges where you can think yourself out of it. And that is a dangerous thing to do, whether it's thinking yourself out of a sales call, whether it's thinking yourself out of a difficult conversation, whether it's thinking yourself out of, sitting down a team member who's underperforming, or whether it's thinking yourself out of, even just getting up and writing a chapter in that book that you've always said you're going to write, but you never get around to writing, or doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu a couple times per day. Just don't think. Set up the systems for success. Because I've made a couple of videos, Nick, where I jokingly say I'm actually the world's laziest person. I'm not motivated. And left to my own devices, I would love to sit around and eat chocolate cake and watch college football on a Saturday. Now, I'm not going to do that because success and my family are far more important than doing that. But, deep down, there's a little part of me that, just wants to do that. And the way that back when I was younger, when there was a lot bigger part of me that wanted to do that, and I used to binge drink on the weekends and all that sort of stuff, I just ended up setting myself up for success. So part of that is removing yourself from those environments. But I didn't want to give up those friendships. So I scheduled bike rides and hikes and workouts with the guys at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, rather than meeting them at a bar at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. And I just changed all these things. And then a lot of the success that I've had in life has come from public accountability, where I'll go on a show or I'll go on my email list and I'll just say, hey, I'm doing this. And
now it's out there.
You're not going to catch, and so being a hypocrite is one of the lowest things in life, or at least it used to be. The world is definitely in a weird place right now. And I don't know if it has the same kind of connotation and reputation, visualization from people is what being a hypocrite used to be, right?
Yeah.
Like the pastor that cheated on his wife, that's like the lowest of the low. You can steal a lady's purse, but if you're a hypocrite, that's worse than that. And so I didn't, when you tell people that you are going to do something, like in 2011, I told people I was going to quit swearing. I don't care if you swear. You can swear all you want. But I quit swearing 10 years ago, 12 years ago now almost. And I told my email list that day. And it took me 3 days to stop swearing because I had, nervous system rituals where I just, I swore all the time. But it took me 3 days to stop swearing. And, I'll never swear in a podcast. I'll never swear standing on stage. The only time I swear is when we moved to Mexico. There are big bugs here. And we had tarantula on the front door a couple of times the other week. Like, I might swear in that situation just because I'm not a bug guy. But I won't. I was able to quit swearing, and I quit swearing because I tell everybody I don't swear. And a year ago, I quit alcohol completely. Like, I was down to like 1 or 2 drinks a month. But then I looked at my sleep stats, and it's like, yeah, it's just.
Where's the? We talk about.
I don't drink.
Yeah, where's the ROI?
Yeah, there isn't. I mean, yeah, and you immediately suffer from it in many ways, and then that night's sleep, and it's like the next day, so you like lose 24 hours of your life for even one drink. It's just not worth it, and so on and so forth. And so that's one great way is to tell people what you're going to do, and if you're a man of your word, you're going to stick to it. It's going to be painful, but I'm sure you when you were doing the 60-day challenge, it was the same sort of thing. It was like, man, I told people I'm doing this. Like, I can let myself, it's okay to let myself down sometimes, but I can't let everybody else down.
Yeah.
And so that'll get you going through.
Well,
as
a man, I feel like it's one of those things, especially as a leader, to set the example right, to set the example, to do something hard, to show something that, hey, listen, I can do this. And if I can do it, you can too. And if you fail at it, it's okay. You can try it again. You can keep, but you set the standard. Real quick, can you talk about, as we're wrapping up, can you talk about the 5 a.m. club?
Yeah. So the 5 a.m. club is like the make your bed thing, right? It's neither necessary nor sufficient for success. And so aside from keyboarding, one of the best classes I took this one was in college, was called Critical Thinking. Mm-hmm. And one of the phrases was, they were always saying, like, if somebody says something, is that necessary for the condition or is that sufficient for the condition? Like, if you join the 5 a.m. club, would that be necessary for you to be successful? No, because Elon Musk gets up after 7 o'clock and, some people would judge him to be successful. NFL players, special operators, not everybody gets up at 5 o'clock. So it's not necessary. And if you join the 5 a.m. club, do you automatically become successful? Well, no, it's not sufficient for success.
If you wake up at 5 a.m. and you're scrolling on your Instagram for an hour and a half, might as well just stay in bed and get an extra hour and a half sleep.
Yeah. Right. And if you went to bed at 12 o'clock, but you want to join the 5 a.m. club, well, you're going to underperform all day long. So it is neither necessary nor sufficient. Now, if you were getting up at 5:30 in the morning and you were going through your day really stressed because you never got any time to think for yourself, then I would tell you to join the 5:15 a.m. club and get up 15 minutes early.
Right.
And in that time, get the stuff out of your head that's maybe causing anxiety, et cetera. So if you go back to 2007, this is a few months after I had my anxiety attacks. I'm in great shape. But I went to the emergency room twice, and they did tell me, like, they gave me a heart rate monitor and they checked me out for like 24 hours, chest x-ray, and they said, okay, there's nothing physically wrong with you. So a few months later, I woke up at 7:30 in the morning, because now I'm this online business owner, Nick. I don't have to get up at any time. So I have a paradox of freedom. I have too much freedom in my life. I can do anything I want at any time of the day. Right. And oftentimes I did. And, you need the structure. So I was getting up at 7:30 in the morning and I was rolling over and I was checking my phone, which was a BlackBerry at the time, right? Checking my email. And you could get 30 great sales notifications, but if you got one customer who was like, I can't download it, or, I didn't like the workout, it just ruins your day. So I'm also a morning person. I love doing everything in the morning. I want to work out. I want to work. I want to check the news. I want to do a million things before noon. And so here I am getting up at 7:30 in the morning, which is already naturally too late for me. And I realized this is a major cause of anxiety in my life. So did I join the 5 a.m. club the next day? No, I joined the 5-minute club. So I got up 5 minutes earlier and I said to myself, I'm going to wait 5 minutes longer to check my email. So I had a 10-minute spread. I did that for 7 days. I didn't do it every single day. No, it's 7 days in a row for 10 minutes. Then I went 5 minutes on each side. So now I got a 20-minute spread, and I did that for 7 days. And the next thing you know, I'm soon getting up at 5:30 in the morning and not checking my email until 9:30. Now, and again, I'm a bachelor at this time, right? So think about, everybody here is an entrepreneur and a father and all, you got everything going on in your life. Imagine if you're a single man getting up at 5:30 in the morning and working on your business until 9:30 in the morning with no interruptions. Think of the damage that you can do in a good way. And that really set me free from the anxiety. And then eventually I went on, I still get up around 4:00 in the morning because I realized how much I love the empty space in the morning.
Yeah.
Some days I don't even turn my computer on for a couple hours. I just sit there and I scribble and I plan and I scheme and I create visions and write business plans and I think of launches and all this stuff.
It's your time.
Yeah. I call it white space.
Yeah.
I call it white space. And a lot of my clients really resonate with this idea of white space because a lot of them right now, they work 40, 50 or 60 hours in their business and they got meetings and they got this, that, and the other thing. But unless you have white space, which is time where there's, it's white space on the calendar, but it's also white space in your brain. That's, there's no inputs. And that's another thing. Everybody's got a podcast going on in their mind when they work out and when they drive. And it's like, no, drive without any audio input for a while and solve your problems.
Yeah.
Because without white space, you never get time to actually do the problem solving. So I love the early mornings because it gives me problem solving time. And so that's why the 5 a.m. club does work for a lot of people because they get up before everybody else is up. And
if it's done the right way.
Fewer distractions. Yeah, sure. But I also know a guy, that Joel guy who I mentioned before. He built a $100 million supplement company working between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So I used to stay at his mansion down in Florida, and I got up at 4:00 in the morning. And I would walk into his giant office, and I don't know if you ever watched Bugs Bunny when you were a kid. You remember the sheepdogs? Yeah. So Sam the sheepdog, and then I forget, like Eddie was the other sheepdog. And they go, "Hey Sam," and like that's basically like the conversation. Joel and I, he would just nod at me, and then he would go to bed at 4:00 in the morning, and I'd start my workday, and I'd see him again at noon. But he was using the same principles. He was using the principle of there's no distractions. He knew himself. He knew his biology, his chronology, his mental framework, that he was a night owl and he got his best work done. And so he just set himself up for success. And so it's not about the hour that you get up. It's about what you do with the hours that you are up. It's not about the hour that you get up. It's about what you do with the hours that you are up. And so there's Olympic champions who get up at all different hours of the day. And there's people that write at 4:00 in the morning. There's people write at 10:00 at night, and so on and so forth. And it really comes down to a lot of self-reflection, introspection about what works best for you. And then obviously, when you've got the responsibilities of other team members and kids and your partner and your spouse and all that sort of stuff, it actually becomes more difficult to be a night owl than it does to get up early, because you also have Netflix. And for those people that do drink alcohol, I mean, obviously your discipline goes down with that and so on and so forth. And there's way too many temptations at night for most people to be successful as night owls. So you may as well get up early in the morning because that's what the world has been built for.
Yeah. So for a couple of years ago, I started that, the 5 a.m. club, but along the lines of the way that you outline it in your books. So no distractions. It's GSD time. Like 5 a.m. I do my morning, about 20 minutes. I do my morning routine, some supplements, water, that sort of thing. Really not focused on anything else other than that. And then I go straight to work. And that's where I've written, ebooks. I've written all kinds of products. I've outlined things. I've gotten I laugh. I'm like, I get done in 2 hours in the morning before everybody wakes up, what most people do in an entire 8-hour day or maybe even a week, because it's completely focused into that thing. And I kind of go over my priorities the night before, look at my calendars. I know what my day is like. So I'm completely mentally prepped when I wake up the next morning at 5 a.m. And I do that. And I don't know if you do, but I found that if I do this 7 days a week, if I I don't do the Monday through Friday thing. It's 7 days a week, because it's that Kobe Bryant kind of mentality, right? If I can get 2 hours on Saturday, 2 hours on Sunday, right, of extra time, of extra work, that's going to snowball over a decade of time that I'm going to get so much ahead. But anyway, thoughts.
But here's the thing is 2 hours on a Saturday is actually 3 or 4 times more productive than 2 hours on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. Because if anybody's worked on a Saturday, you know that there's a huge difference. And I'm huge. Like I wrote about work on Saturday. I'm a big believer in it. I'm all on board with this. And it's because if you've done this, you know that Saturday is a different feeling. It's the same sunrise. You're drinking out of the same coffee mug. You're sitting at the same desk, but it's different. Man, is it ever different? And maybe it's a woo-woo thing. Maybe there's like a certain amount of creative energy that's out there in the world, and there's only 10% of people are working on Saturday morning, and so there's more creative energy for you. But the 2 hours on Saturday is not an extra 2 hours. It's an extra 8 hours. Yeah. It's an extra 8 hours. And I mean, it has been one of the biggest, like I've had some of my best ideas on a Saturday morning for sure.
Yeah. Excellent. So Craig, where can people find you? Where can they order your stuff?
Yeah. So CraigBallantyne.com/free books. You can just go there and you can get my ebooks and my audiobooks for free. No opt-in, nothing required. I wrote these books to be read. And so I want people to consume them and make big changes. And then they can hit me up on Instagram anytime at Real Craig Ballantyne as well. And if you have follow-up questions or anything, or if you have some anxiety stuff, just let me know. Answer all my direct messages. Obviously, it's just between you and me. But read my books at CraigBallantyne.com/free books. It'll be a huge game changer.
100%. And I second that. Personally affected me in my life over the past few years. And now it's affecting our clients as well. And cool. Real quick, are you still doing the social selling system? I want to pimp that out.
I do have, I have a course on how to make money on Instagram, and so it's kind of a timeless approach to it, and definitely works. And we still sell.
Yeah, we did that when we still used a variant of that system. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, we used it for a Black Friday, and it freaking crushed. Oh, awesome. It crushed, man. Yeah. It crushed. So if you're selling things online, I don't even think it's that expensive, but definitely go. It's
a couple of bucks,
definitely go get that. It is very beneficial if you're selling things online. Other than that, Craig, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to finally hang out and chat a little bit, and look forward to it.
Yeah, it's great to finally chat one-on-one.
Yeah. All right, guys. You guys know the deal. Never quit, never surrender, and we always keep moving forward. We'll see you guys in the next episode.